Are you ready to talk about some modern wrestling?
Not really.
Well, we're going to do it anyway. Actually, the first part is not only palatable, but promising, because if I hadn't watched NXT this past week first, if I'd have watched AEW, I wouldn't have been able to go on. I got NXT in first, and it was actually enjoyable enough that I had the patience, the energy, and the will to delve into AEW, and by the time that they drove me out of my mind, the show was over. And remember, as we said at the start, folks, the lights out segment on this program will be on the Friday night Rampage debut that we have not seen yet because it hadn't happened yet. But did you see NXT, first of all?
I didn't. I was thinking about it, and then I just kind of kept moving on with my day.
You missed the best stuff on wrestling programs this week was here, so you missed that. Some of the best, some of the worst, but I shall breeze through it. The opening match was Ilya Draganov against Roderick Strong.
Oh, see, I would have liked to have seen that. That sounds good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it wasn't supposed to be that way. It was supposed to be Roddy against Kushida. And somehow Kushida wasn't cleared. Hope, maybe he got that, white powder that I sent him in the mail. But
you stop it. No, there was no white powder sent to anyone, and no one should do that.
Nobody should do that. I don't even have his address. I'm just joshing. But we got Strong and Ilya instead of Strong and Kushida because of whatever reason, so I'm happy. However, Roderick Strong looks 10 years older and a lot unhappier than he did with the Undisputed Era. He's buzzed his hair differently, or he's got the beard kind of growing, and he looks older. He didn't have the oomph. He didn't have the face. I loved Strong, O'Reilly, Fish, and Cole together, and Roddy and Fish got fired, and Roddy is not looking at it. It took something away. But this match was two athletes wrestling, and it wasn't a main event. Ilya and Walter is a main event because Walter is a main event guy, and what Walter and Ilya put together in that match they had earlier or last year, whenever the fuck it was so good that you want to see a return match. But I don't think it's knocking anybody that say Ilya Draganov and Roderick Strong will never be a main event in a major promotion. But it's a great match for the product. It's a great match to have on television or to have on a card. People don't laugh at matches like this. It was aggressive, competitive wrestling and good work. And they stuck to their styles. Roddy's an aggressive wrestling heel. Ilya's a technical baby face. The blistering chops. Ilya's chest was it looked like Flair when Ronnie Garvin used to chop him every night. Blood was seeping through the pores. And Ilya's facials are great. His selling, both these guys selling nice pace. Went through a break. And again, I'm thinking this is the modern style of pro wrestling that we could have had when wrestling, if wrestling had evolved, if the comedy writers and the cosplayers hadn't taken over. And again, this is not a money match with these particular guys, especially in the way they've been presented, but it's good for your show. It's good for your card. Nobody will laugh at it. Nobody will think it's silly or stupid. And this is also when you do the crazy stuff that draws the money, these guys stayed in the ring, no gimmicks, no chairs, no furniture, and they still kept your attention. I could have watched this all fucking night. At one point, Ilya German suplexed Roddy and busted his own eye open hard way. I guess probably, I don't know what of Roddy's came down on his forehead, but now Ilya's bleeding. And it looked like an old-fashioned juice job, and he's selling the juice great with the facials. They were doing creative stuff. And finally, just into the finish, they'd been back and forth, and Ilya caught Roddy coming off the ropes with a flying uppercut forearm. Boom. Cover 1, 2, 3. Just great stuff. Excellent performance. And Ilya, he's smaller, and he has that that look I mentioned, he looks like a Russian fighter, a smart aleck, smart-faced Russian fighter. He's not that big, but he's in shape and he's put together and he has that look. He's the underdog babyface that all the smaller guys in both the WWE and AEW wish they were. But he has that fire and that oomph, and he won't quit. And you can tell he's taking real punishment. It's not like they're giving him bumps off the roof through all this furniture and he kicks out at two. It fits the presentation. The point is, what an underdog. He's a modern Ricky Morton type. If Ricky had ever looked like a Russian shoot fighter. Anyway, since you didn't see it, I won't ask your thoughts, but you missed out. So that's for all the people that say I never say anything good about anybody today.
Now, you said you liked this show. There's no way they maintain that feeling you had coming out of that match in the next segment. No matter what it is, I have no idea what it was.
Well, actually, hold on here a second now. Because they did maintain it for a second. They did a package on Cole and O'Reilly.
Okay.
They're tied at 1-1. TakeOver is the rubber match, the undisputed finale. They did a great package, sit-down interviews with highlights, a UFC-style fight build that incorporated their story. Adam Cole was great, basically telling Kyle O'Reilly, you're nothing without me. You were never anything without me. It was a serious personal issue. Nobody had their tongue in their cheek or sticking it out and wiggling it around at the camera. Then, after that, things dropped. Hit Row and the Lucha Suits are mad at each other, and surprise, surprise, they had a fake fight in the parking lot. I went out there, the three Lucha Suits and the three guys in Hit Row and the girl had a nightstick, and they go out and have a fake fight in the parking lot with lots of AJ, the big guy, picking people up and slamming them into the garage door and a lot of grunting. And the girl hit one guy in the gut with the fucking nightstick. And it was, I used to love when you'd see a parking lot fight in wrestling, when you saw one every year or two. And now, since it's multiple times per show, and especially it was stupid given what was going to go on later on, but nevertheless. So blah. Poor Cameron Grimes is still the tuxedo-clad butler of LA Knight, and now LA Knight is bribing people to beat the shit out of Grimes and get rid of him.
Hey, let me ask you a question. Having not watched in a while, and knowing several guys who were talented, who you liked, that were recently cut, what do you think Vince thought, or what do you think Vince thinks of Cameron Grimes?
I don't know. Maybe if Vince's odd sense of humor comes in, the fact that they've made him a complete fucking buffoon will get him over with Vince. Maybe because they've got him tied in with DiBiase, if Vince has a soft spot for the $1 Million Man. Maybe if they'd seen him work, if Vince had seen him work a year or so ago when he still was halfway salvageable, they've made him a complete fucking idiot because this material is phony and nobody would ever believe it. And he's wearing this tuxedo to wrestle in. He's doing LA Knight's bidding, but Ted DiBiase is trying to save him from LA Knight and pump him up to be his own man. This whole, it's grown men doing this. So Grimes wrestled Josh Briggs, and LA Knight was going to pay Josh Briggs $10,000 if he fucked up Cameron Grimes, but Ted is sitting doing color with LA Knight, and Ted bet LA Knight double or nothing that Grimes wins. Teddy's half asleep on this thing. I don't know whether he's not into it or whether he's just, that's Uncle Joey's moving kind of slow these days. But by the end of the match, Cameron Grimes in this tuxedo looked like an unmade bed. His shirt was out. The fucking tails were flying everywhere. But Cameron Grimes won. So LA Knight turned around and punched Ted DiBiase while he's sitting in his chair. He just kind of fell back and slumped in his chair like he'd gone to sleep, and then hit some kind of fucking move on Cameron Grimes on the floor and left him laying. And so at TakeOver, if LA Knight wins, then DiBiase will be LA Knight's butler, which means we're probably going to get to see Teddy lead Grimes in some fashion, verbally or mentally or physically or whatever, to victory, which will mean that LA Knight who still had a shot when they bring him in. He's fresh. He's in good shape. He can work pro wrestling style. He's got some experience and he can talk. So they've pigeonholed him into losing stipulation matches against mid-card guys that they present as an idiot.
Or DiBiase will be the butler. Because what's more Vince McMahon than hearing the news that DiBiase and his family are in some legal and financial trouble and saying, this is my opportunity of getting Ted and embarrassing him in my friendly Vince McMahon way.
All righty, moving on in the program.
Not a denial.
Mr. and Mrs. Sameface were talking with Indi Hartwell, and they had a little 8x10 copy paper poster on the wall behind them missing Austin Theory. The one guy in that group that I want to see is the old, you never see him. And then the next match was Dexter Lumis and his heartthrob Indi Hartwell, as I've mentioned before, they're an item, against Jessie Kamehameha, the 6'6" girl, and Robert Stone, the manager, with Frankie Monet in the corner. The one that I want to see, the only one that I want to see is in the corner of the two I don't. In a mixed tag team match. Robert Stone is a foot shorter than Jessie Kamehameha. He's a manager. He's wrestling barefoot and doing cartwheels. So I'm not ribbing. Before he even locked up, he's doing cartwheels, and he does all comedy manager stuff that you can tell that he's trying to do it, and he's parodying managers, and it's fucking silly, and I was done with this. I fast forwarded. But after the match, I swear to God, I am not lying to you, Brian, Indi Hartwell gets down on one knee and offered Dexter Lumis a ring and proposed to him.
Oh, come on.
I'm not shit. And Dexter Lumis took it, and Beth Phoenix, poor Beth, started yelling, "We've got a wedding to plan." Oh. I got something else to plan to do with my Tuesday nights from 8 to 10 if this fucking shit keeps up.
That wedding may be around the same time as the funeral of NXT.
It's just so anyway, I said at that point, I wrote, I'm done with this show, but they've advertised Karrion Kross and Samoa Joe face-to-face tonight, so I'll fast forward to that. Right? Because after Roddy and Ilya, and then the Cole and O'Reilly package, the comedy has stuck this thing right back in the toilet, and it was a mess. So, but here's what I fast forwarded through. Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez did a dueling promo. Carmelo Hayes faced Duke Hudson in the breakout tournament. And Carmelo won and will face Odyssey Jones in the finals. And Carmelo is a babyface. Oh, I'm so happy. And then Odyssey Jones is a babyface. And Odyssey comes out face-to-face with Carmelo and has a line. But who is the babyface here? Why not give Odyssey Jones a heel to slay to get him over? Because if he don't win this, they're out of their fucking minds. But now it's just two babyface guys that deserve a shot. So now, if anything, you're just, as a human nature, you're going to pull for the smaller guy. God damn it. DiBiase and Grimes did some horrible material where Ted was giving him the pep talk and Cameron Grimes was starting to realize where he'd gone wrong and what he'd done. And then he ripped his shirt off and the old Cameron Grimes is back and to the moon. But at one point, Cameron Grimes actually said these words, "Sadly, I dropped the ball."
No one ever says that about themselves like that.
No, they don't. Then I gained new respect for somebody, a modern tag team. The next match was MSK against Imperium, old Marcel Marceau, as we've called him, and Fabian Forte, but it's Marcel Barthel and Fabian Eichner. This tag team match, I gained new respect, as I said, for Imperium because this was two really fucking good pro wrestlers having a struggle to have a good match with two awkward breakdancers. Imperium looks like ass kickers. They look like athletes. They look like heels. They're no nonsense. MSK looked like they wandered off from reform school with bad haircuts and prison tattoos. And this was, God, the problem with MSK is they learned to flip before anybody ever made them learn the basics. So their timing and their selling and they rush and they push and they herk and jerk. And it may be, they've got athletic ability because they can do all this shit, but they just do everything in every direction. And it may be too late to break the bad indie habits and retrain them. I am going to say the answer is yes. Imperium got some heat on it. They did a blah hot tag, and the white guy, I can't remember which name's which, but the white MSK guy made a spastic comeback with a bunch of kicks from every direction where the guys couldn't really just take a bump. It was like bang, 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 all over the place, running back and forth. And then, and I don't know that I've ever seen this before. It struck me here. It's very odd. The babyface makes his comeback, bing, 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 and then turned around and flat-footed tagged his partner that had just been getting the shit kicked out of him for 5 minutes, tagged him back in without going for a single cover. Not one false finish in the babyface's comeback. He turns around and tags his partner back in. And I'm like, my God, what in the world? You know why they did it? Do you remember the first time I saw them, I said, I've seen the stupidest move ever done. They put their opponent down on the ground, on the mat, and then one of them stands away from the opponent, but jumps up in the air and does a backflip, and the other one, his partner, shoves him to where he will land on the opponent that's laying there stationary. Or he could have just done his fucking backflip and landed on the fucking guy who ain't moving. But they think that's a tag team maneuver. And that's why he tagged the guy flat-footed back in without even going for a false finish on his comeback so they could do that spot. And then Walter comes out and interfered, distraction, and Ilya comes out and they get in a fight on the floor. And in the confusion, MSK beat Imperium. These two fucking juvenile delinquents beat the badass foreigners. So, but then Walter was still on Ilya, and this was, I get, okay, the black MSK member's name, I believe, is Lee. So he comes out and throws two punches to Walter's shoulder. Actually, the first one was to his shoulder blade because he hit him in the back, even though he was standing in front of him. And then the second one hit his shoulder. This guy can't throw a punch, but they're doing fucking geometric design flips in the air in the ring. So Walter beat up both members of MSK. Ilya comes back, and Walter stops him and gets a choke. And here's where they fell in the hole with this, because everything Walter does is usually, but no bell ringing, no help coming, no chaos, no urgency. They played Walter's music. This could have been chaos to the fucking break, and instead they do they play Walter's music. He stands there over Ilya. They go to a replay. They come back and they're still posing, standing over Ilya, who is still laying there. That was not the way to close this segment to promote Walter's match with Ilya at TakeOver, because nobody thinks Ilya is going to beat Walter anyway, and he probably is not, and he really shouldn't. But to have him left laying, he should have still been fighting. If anything, somehow Walter should have shown a bit of vulnerability, like taking a bump out on the floor and making mean faces, let his guys hold him back while Ilya was still up. But he's just flat on the ground there, laying there forever while they do their pose. Nobody came out. Nobody rang a bell. Nobody tried to stop it. No urgency, no jeopardy, no money. So that was I liked Imperium, and they did the best they could here, and I always loved Walter, and Ilya was great, but they gave them a bad angle to work with. And lastly, remember I said that fight in the parking lot was so stupid because of what would go on later?
Yeah.
Okay, all night they've been promoting Samoa Joe and Karrion Kross face-to-face in this television program. Joe comes to the ring, calls out Karrion Kross, Come out here, you son of a bitch. Kross comes out to the stage and calls security out, and he gets 5 security guys to protect Samoa Joe. And while he's cutting the promo on Joe, the security guys go to ringside. Kross walks in. He can talk. He sounds like a grown man with bass in his voice. That's different in itself these days. And then he gets in the ring and starts to walk up and say something to Joe, and Joe just fucking gave him that not flying, but just that freestanding headbutt. And here we go. Boom, boom, boom. And here comes security, and Joe beats up the security and throws them out the ring on top of fucking Kross. And then he hits the ropes and does a dive, 300 and whatever pounds of Samoa Joe, and like a goddamn bowling ball, blistered all of them. This looked good. Big fight. They started going into the arena. They knocked, you know how they have the steel cage or the chain link around the Capitol Wrestling Center. They knocked the barricades and the cage, the chain link over. And then again, they were tearing all kinds of shit up. They went through the wall, and both of them were down, stunned with the wreckage of the wall. And we'll see what happens at TakeOver. That's why the parking lot fight was even stupider. This is the main event of their pay-per-view. Karrion Kross and Samoa Joe, they're having a fight all over the arena. They're tearing shit up. But they just had a fucking fight with twice as many guys in a parking lot, not even an hour beforehand in the same program. Those guys, Hit Row and the Lucha Suits, are the salad with the steak dinner. These guys are the fucking steak. But anyway, this was obviously the best wrestling program of the two of these things, because you got to see Strong and Ilya. You got to see a Cole and O'Reilly package. You got to see Joe and Kross interact. And you got and Imperium. Nobody would have liked that. Well, I guess some people would have liked that match, but I liked that match because it showed me how good Imperium was, that it wasn't any worse with those two delinquents. So this wasn't a bad show as shows go, because there was 3 or 4 things in there that was good.
What do you think if Ilya beats Walter?
I wouldn't be opposed to it, because the people will go ballistic and the fucking kid has fought and earned it. But having said that, I wouldn't be opposed to it, because it's obviously become apparent that they're not going to bring Walter, nor does he probably want to come to the full roster and put him on the main roster and have him interacting with the Reignses and the Cenas and et ceteras. So if they were going to do that like they should, then no, Ilya shouldn't beat him. Anyway.
That was NXT.
Yes, it was. And before we go any further, I'm just wondering, the one thing that the comparison that we've made, Brian, is that the guys in NXT are all better. They're better conditioned athletes. They're better trained, right? They're not like the amateur indie guys with the soft, pudgy bodies like you have over in AEW. And I think that's because, the AEW guys, they just ride these skateboards. They don't really get out and experience life like on one of these big Rad Power Bikes where you can just go anywhere you want to go.
Imagine how different Darby Allin's life would be if instead of a skateboard, some loving guardian of some sort had handed him a Rad Power Bike.
That's what I was going for, yes, because then instead of tootling around on that little chintzy skateboard, he would be in style, running up and down hills, driving up and down hills, puttering around doing his errands, going to work and back.
To the ring. He likes to take his skateboard to the ring. Imagine him on a Rad Power Bike scooting to the ring.
A Rad Power Bike to the ring. All the kids that he's going to bring into the wrestling business. That we've talked about earlier. He could have them all strapped to the back of him.
No, you stop with that.
Well, no, that's a safe way to do it. Strap them into the kid seats.
Into the kid seats. I don't know if
there kid seats.
There may not be kid seats for Rad Power.
Well, no, but you could put a kid seat on Darby Allin's back, and then Darby Allin could get on the Rad Power Bike. But folks, regardless, a Rad Power Bike will bring a smile to your face anytime you're
unless you're on the back of Darby Allin.
Unless you're on Darby Allin's back, and then no, they won't even be able to see your face. Rad Power Bikes were voted best affordable electric bike in 5 categories by electricbikereview.com. Even better, they're North America's largest electric bike brand and half the price of most e-bikes. Do you want to enjoy the outdoors while limiting your carbon footprints and fingerprints? You don't want to lug equipment up a trail when you're fishing? We talked about fishing a lot today on the program. Zoom up the steepest hills without getting hot or sweaty? Run errands? Commute? They do it all. 5 levels of assisted hill climbing power. You can ride up to 20 miles an hour without pedaling at all if you want to ride without getting sweaty, but pedaling is optional. Rad Power Bikes are affordable. Most of the e-bikes are in the $3,000 range. Rad Power Bikes start at just $999, and most are under $1,500. So, if you've got questions, Rad Power Bikes even has a dedicated U.S.-based customer support service that is there for you when you need them, and they can also understand you and you them. It makes the perfect gift for someone who loves being active and outdoors. Now, for a limited time only, Rad Power Bikes offers flexible financing for as low as 0% APR. You can't get much lower, and free shipping. Text JIM, J-I-M, to 64,000. That's JIM, J-I-M, to 64000 today, and you can get the free shipping on these Rad Power Bikes because they are indeed rad. They're as rad as Radford. Terms apply. Available at radpowerbikes.com/terms. Radford terms available at radford.com/terms.